I was taught in Jamaica that the streets of England was paved with gold. So when I came to England and I saw white people sweeping the street and there was no gold, I said, huh?
I felt very disillusioned when I came to England.
We were told you can't come to Queen's Country without wearing a suit and a big hat with a feather.
The first impression was the building. They were so close together. Coming from the West Indies and the building, they were so far apart.
When I saw the buildings with the chimneys on top, and I thought they were soldiers just guarding the buildings.
Like a lot of West Indians, I thought they were factories.
I thought, my God, this country has got so many factories, lots of work for people to do.
English food, atrocious. Oh dear, dear. I couldn't eat their food.
I never like the food. Up to now, I don't like it. Because everything is stale. And when I'm in Jamaica, I get fresh things, everything fresh.
You know, in the 50s, there weren't many Caribbean shops, so we just had to make out with what the English grocers were selling.
I could remember asking the milkman to deliver me a loaf of bread. When I came back from work, I couldn't find no bread. When I looked, the dog had it across the road. He just put it down on the doorstep and went. I said, oh my God, what is this? I never asked him to deliver another one.
In the end, we complained so much that the companies started wrapping the bread.
When I come to this country, it was very strange for me to see people eating fish and chips from newspapers.
We regard newspaper back home as being dirty.
And that would be the last thing I would eat out of.
The clothes were so drab and dull.
Our style was much better.
Yeah, we used to wear the zoot suit.
The first time I experienced the fog and the darkness, I thought it was the end of the world.
Scenes from Jack the Ripper, fog and that kind of thing.
It was very depressing. I did miss the sunshine.
The first time we saw snow, we just stood at the window and it was so beautiful.
Why did I have to leave my country to come here?
The impression they gave me was that they didn't really want me here as a black person.
I wanted was to go back because all my kids were left home. I cried night, I cried day. I didn't want to be here.
Once I'm here, I was prepared to stick it out. Couldn't just jump on a bus and go home.
My favorite subject as a child was art. When I came here, I went to the first art lesson, which I was quite excited about. However, the teacher was very negative about what I was doing, and so I gave up. Little did I know at the time that directly opposite the school gate was the house in which Van Gogh lived while he was in London. It's ironic because I went on to do art. Now I show at places like the Royal Academy.
When I put the washing out on the line, because the sun was shining, I went out, felt the clothes, and thought they were nice and dry, really stiff, as though I'd put starch in them. And I wondered, how come the clothes got starch in them and I didn't put any? Took them inside, didn't realize that the clothes were frozen solid. Left them on the bed with the paraffin heater on in the room. The ice thawed out and all this water was on the bed. It was so funny.
When I think of paraffin heaters, I think of death. So many of my friends' children died from paraffin heaters.
Because if it goes out of night and you're still asleep, then everybody will be dead by next morning.
I remember seeing two policemen on their horses, and because it was a chilly day, I remember the horse just doing something like, to me it was like smoke coming out of the horse's mouth, and I thought to myself, what kind of place is this? Even the horses smoke here. And to me as a boy, it was so strange. I've never seen it done before.
I saw all these neon signs saying, take courage, and I thought, the government certainly have gone to a lot of trouble to encourage the people. My cousin stopped at one of these institutions, and we went in, and he got me a glass of courage. Then I realized courage was beer.
I was booked to play on St. Patrick's Night in Kilburn. When I got to the pub, as a black group walked in, the landlord said to me, "Can you play Irish music?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, if you want to get out here in one piece, you better get out as soon as you can."
This white girl said to me, "How come the middle of your hand is white and the outer, the back is black?" I said, "Because I was made by the master. You were chopped out by the apprentice, that's why you are different."
I was in the Royal Air Force itself, in the ground crew, as a teleprint operator.
What I really would have loved to have done is to join the army when I get over here. If I got a chance, I would go in the army.
I did come to Britain to do nursing. I so wanted to be a nurse.
They were asking for nurses to join the prison service. And I applied for the job. My husband thought I was crazy. And he said, you can't go and work in the prison.
There was conscription being done. All the young men had to go in the army to serve a stint of approximately 2 years. And I went into the army.
I got on with the staff and even the inmates. One inmate told me she would like to get me in bed with her. So
one of the experiences I had was working on my first job in the Christmas card factory.
My first job was a bus conductor.
And these young English girls, women, used to call me love.
I usually say to people when they get on the bus, hold tightly.
In the Western, no woman says to you, love, you know?
And this man decided to take me on and said, "You don't say hold tightly, you say hold tight." And I said, "No, because hold is a verb and it can only be modified by an adverb." He looked at me and said, "My God, where did they get this one?"
So I said to myself, oh, these women fancied me. So I went and tell my friend Ruthven, the women in the factory fancied me. And he said, "No, that's the way they speak. They don't fancy you."
I saw this sign, Army Recruiting Office. So I went into the office. I said, "Well, yes, I'd like to join the Horse Guards." And he said, "The Guards?" I said, "Yeah." And he sort of looked at me in this strange way. And I thought, well, what's so funny about that? So I said, "Well, a few months ago, I was escorting the Queen from the Royal Yacht Britannia along the streets of Port of Spain up to the government house where she stayed." I said, "And if I can do it in Trinidad, why can't I do it in England?" And he just laughed and he said, "We're not ready to make history yet, Terry." I can only remember 2 of us being in a regiment of over 1,000 men.
A memorial gate has now been established and constitutional, which I'm sure will make people realize that we did make a substantial contribution to the war effort.
Well, the music that they played here in my day when I came to England was like a Jim Reeves,
Eddie Fisher, Frankie Lane.
Country and Western.
Lonnie Donegan and Akabilk and people like that. And it was like alien music.
A lot of the English music I was not used to.
The music in Jamaica was blue beat. So coming here and the music here, it was totally different from Jamaica.
Because back in the West Indies, we were accustomed to the black music coming out of America.
There was a record shop in Brixton where there were 2 white guys who owned this record shop, and they used to import all the R&B music from the US.
I had brought over a lot of steel band and calypso long playing records at the time, so I used to use that to sort of remind me of Trinidad.
They had their blue spot. This was the in thing at the time when it came to music. You know, all this music blaring out.
Yes, the blue spot radiogram was the best one to get.
Yes, I remember when I went to buy my radiograph. It was a big occasion, really. Exciting.
Not only was it a music center, the Blue Spot Ground will always be remembered as being one of the most outstanding pieces of furniture that we had in England.
House parties on a Saturday night.
They all gathered together and organized these house parties in everybody's house. They took it in turn, and that was their main social event.
We used to have experience of doing West Indian dancing, the jitterbugs and the different type of dancing. They used to form a ring around the West Indians to see how they dance.
Towards the end of November 1958, it was a rough year. We've had the Notting Hill riots and so on. And someone, I still believe to this day, was a Trinidadian, though I can't recall who it was, said, "Why not have a carnival?" And we started planning from there, and the first carnival took place, I think, the 31st of January 1959. We did have our jump up in St. Pancras Town Hall, and it was a sellout.